So we really have come around to what I'll call a much more sophisticated Pentagon compliance roadmap, which is really the future looking as to how the DoD handles e-commerce. You know, we all take for granted from a consumer perspective what e-commerce means to us today. If we go online to our favorite online store, no matter what it is, maybe an Amazon or something, and we place an order through a web browser, we get shipment notifications as our item is shipped from the facility, not only when it's in transit, but also when it arrives to our home or business, whatever the case may be. Well, the DoD has got a far more complex acquisition process, as we know, and also what they've tried to do is assemble the building blocks of the way that property and end items are accounted for from contractors coming in through to the various branches of the department. So we've broken this down with sort of a 1 through 6 where I'll take you through. In the upper left-hand corner, you can see that the number 1 designates end items that are required under contract to be built and shipped to the U.S. military. And the DFARS clause that requires that with the proper identification using IUID in order to apply to those physical end items, those assemblies and any sub-assemblies, is 252.211-7003 for your end item deliverables. Now the prime obligation has all the obligation to ensure that the items are marked properly and that the subcontractors are doing their role. And their role often means that when the subcontractors are being tasked with this flow down requirement, that they're performing their item marking in the components or assemblies that make up that final assembly, and then they send them off to the prime, and the prime pulls together the final assemblies. But the prime also has a responsibility of assembling the data that needs to be reported through to these e-commerce systems within the DoD, what we know today as iRAPT, formerly Wide Area Workflow. And iRAPT has become the gateway for data to be sent through to the government. It's not a system of record by any stretch, but it is a e-commerce portal, if you will, in which data gets sent through to the government. And that iRAPT data now contains all the contract information, any CLIN level detail, any unique identification level detail, so every UII gets reported now through iRAPT. Even from a shipment perspective here, you have the advanced ship notice, which gets included in these transactions that are going through, vetted by DCMA to ensure that everything is being submit. Not only are the end items coming in according to those contract obligations, but also are the electronic transactions now being required, you know, and are they also part of the whole transaction that can allow the government to receive their items and pay their contractors within a timely fashion. We're actually even starting to hear more here at A2B Tracking as we deploy our systems that the DD-250s are becoming less of a contractor obligation because these transactions are starting to take over. And I thought it would be some time before the DD-250 started to go away, but we're starting to see signs of that now. When it comes to property, a very similar obligation, although it's a different business cycle where in the contract, your property contract will call out the 252.211-7007 clause, which will require you as a contractor to report your government property that you have under your custody, also through the iRAPT system, and any ins and outs have to get sent out or received through iRAPT as well. And then of course DCMA needs to also be vetting the fact that these are all being done according to those contracts obligations. Many contractors in the property side, the first advice is always look to your contract to see what your obligations are, because every contract can be a little different. but there was a date back, I want to say in 13, if I'm not mistaken, 2013, that said for every new contract with a GFP clause in it, by default, it will have these obligations to report property through iRAPT and into the IUID registry, which, remember, the IUID registry is the master data source now for all of this government property. It's where it has to live. So really the whole concept of products flowing in or property flowing in and out, translates also to electronic transactions having to happen seamlessly from the contractor through to the government. And this iRAPT system has become the gateway to get that data into the various repositories that they need to. And so that's why this roadmap is important to reflect on and to think about how does this impact the way that you handle data and these obligations within your own operation.